Hello, everybody. I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today we're going to be talking about science, our Lord and Savior science, in the postmodern era, rather. And yes, today we've got our wonderful avatars, the Internet Surfboard Lady, and this lady, who I feel like accurately represents most Americans' reaction to scientific matters. The fact is, we live in a functionally illiterate society, and it's kind of hard for people to acknowledge sometimes, but people don't really know what's going on, and so they rely on other people to essentially tell them what's going on. And that's kind of a problem when there are people out there who don't exactly want everyone to be fully informed. So that's what I'm here to do, is a counterattack against those systems of deception. And today I'm just going to be going over a couple different scientific issues. The headline of today's video is why science is losing, okay? Which is, basically science is just a methodology. It's just a branch of the tree of philosophy. It's a way of verifying, our knowledge and testing things in the empirical sense, to make sure it's not something that just exists up here per se, but something that exists out there, right? And so this is it just gets ridiculous on so many different levels right now, because there are people who claim to have the high ground with science, right? People who claim to be the final arbiters of science. And the media ironically takes that position, even though nobody in the media has any right to speak on scientific matters with any authority. They're just journalists. But basically, it's it's just a problem, because people who are claiming to be scientific actually are not. They are actually just abiding by the same clique mentality that all humans are, guilty of doing at one time or another. So I'm just going to be showing in a few different areas how people who claim to be the super scientists are actually missing a whole bunch of perspectives that is totally scientific. And so, this nonsense has got to stop, because there's plenty of science that shows, number one, that global warming is not even happening. At least it's not an anthropogenic thing. It's not human caused. Okay, you got the American Heart Association coming out and talking about how coconut oil is evil and it's causing heart disease. All right, you got people in the astronomical community still just putting out complete falsehoods, complete bullshit that has no fundamental underpinning in physics or whatever. It's just a bunch of mathematical jargon. And, just going over a bunch of things like that. So here we go. All right. Okay, so starting out with this article that I saw on Zero Hedge today, basically a research report slams global warming data, but totally inconsistent with reality. Basically, so it's a research report that came out just a few days ago, or at least was. So starting out with this global warming article that showed up on Zero Hedge, basically there's a new research report out, and it's just kind of confirming that the global average surface temperature data on which all of the global warming models were routinely adjusted, and that the adjustments were not scientific and random and just trying to, remove undesirable things. It was actually just, goal seeking the data, basically manipulating the data to fit the desired conclusion, which of course is that humans are causing global warming. Humans are causing climate change because of carbon dioxide. This information's been out there for a little while, that, basically NOAA and NASA and, the Med and Hadley, basically, they're all manipulating the data to make it so that basically the cyclical warming doesn't get shown as much, and the late 20th century warming gets exaggerated. And it's this data that leads to them making all these claims that the last few years have been the warmest on record, which, without that data manipulation, that's a total freaking lie. It's not true at all. And of course, this is it's a research report. So looking into it, basically, this is the report, and basically, it's not a peer-reviewed report. Okay, and this is what of course, Snopes jumps to immediately. Basically, that's just a research report, because all the money is going towards all the reports that just confirm the existing government narrative. But luckily, that narrative is changing, because the government is no longer under the control of the climate cultists. And so Dr. Alan Carlin is former, an analyst and manager at US EPA. We got ex-NASA. We got this guy's from oil and gas. Of course, the climate cultists will go ape shit over that. Instructor emeritus of atmospheric and oceanic sciences at University of Colorado. Anthony Lupo, who was an expert reviewer for the IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, where all these global warming thing like prognostications are coming out of. This guy, PhD in physics from MIT, right? So I mean, these are the guys who basically throw their name and intellectual credence behind the report. And just going down to some of the charts, basically they're showing what adjustments were made. They're showing that on each new iteration of the adjustments that they made it more and more extreme in the manipulation, right? That originally the changes were fairly minor, but as time went on, they just kept lowering the temperatures for the first half of the 20th century and raising them for the second half of the 20th century. And there's changes that need to be made to any statistical model as more data comes in, of course. But what they're claiming, what they're showing rather, is that with each new time, they didn't just make some cold here, some cold there. It ended up being pretty much straight up all cold. Like this is the final one. So they raised the temperature hugely in the second half of the 20th century, and they lowered it a lot for the first half. So, what that ends up doing is it minimizes the cyclical increase in temperature, and it makes it look like there's just this linear trend going up and up and up until the whole world explodes in a global warming holocaust, right? So there's natural variation, right? It follows a curve like everything in the universe, right? They're showing all these other raw data sets that are showing basically no global warming trend. And this is the thing. So the U.S. data basically does not confirm the global warming narrative. And then Snopes goes over and says, "Well, it's all those other buoys and meters that were added, because it's global warming, not just U.S. warming." Well, that's the thing, is that Snopes will go and claim that basically, oh, there's way more data being added to it all the time, and they changed some things just because they're adding in a whole bunch of more data. Well, yeah, that would be true, except for it's bullshit, because the number of stations recording the climate has dropped off a cliff since the 70s. And of course, right here is about when we see the global warming, records, right? All these supposed scientific measurements go through the roof, right? And it's curious that about that time, the number of stations dropped off a cliff, and it's continued to. So data is in fact not being added to the system, it's being selectively taken out. You can see how many stations in Canada were active basically in 1975, right? All these dark triangles, and then you see in 2009 how many were active, right? A couple. So they're cherry picking data, right? They say all this is just in the interest of science, but it's a crock of shit because the U.S. data and all this data all over the world does not bear out their conclusions, and so Snopes just holds on to this one graph right here, saying, "See, if they were manipulating the data, the raw data would be higher than the adjusted data." So, and here's their graph. They show that basically the NOAA uncorrected data for the first half of the 20th century is actually lower than the adjustments. The only problem is the whole point here, what they're even saying, is that NOAA fudged the data. You can't rely even on NOAA's original recordings. So you go back to basically these guys, the New Zealand data. So again, you don't see an increase in heat waves, right? This is just cold weather is far more harmful to human beings. Let's see, that's West Greenland, showing again just a cyclical thing, no linear climb into the stratosphere. Arctic region temperatures, natural variability. Here we go. So here's the U.S. data. Again, no global warming, peaked in the mid-20th century, and it's been kind of just going through its natural changes since then. Right. And where is it? The New Zealand data, right? Okay, so yeah, here's the New Zealand unadjusted data, and here's the adjusted data. One basically shows cyclical changes, the other shows a distinct linear trend. So they've been doing this all over the world, and again, for the Snopes idiots who, can't figure out anything for themselves, to rely on this one stupid chart right here that's going back to the same flawed data from NOAA. Okay, here's, New Zealand in the southern hemisphere are literally on the opposite side of the planet as the United States, showing the exact same thing. They're manipulating the data across the board, and it's bullshit. So the other thing that's crazy is the urban heat island effect, and these stations. So first of all, there have been far less stations than there were, just even a few decades ago. But not only that, the quality of the stations is total crap. Okay, check this out. Look, only about 3% of climate measurement stations met the ideal specification for siting. They found stations located next to the exhaust fans of air conditioning units, surrounded by asphalt parking lots and roads, on blistering hot rooftops, and near sidewalks and buildings that absorb and radiate heat. Okay. They found that 90% of the stations fail to meet the National Weather Service's own siting requirements, that stations must be 30 meters, about 100 feet away from an artificial heating or reflecting source. And here's a couple of pictures. This one's right next to a brick building, right? Directly over a barbecue. That's just cute. Again, right next to all these different, heat absorbing and heat radiating structures. I mean, what a joke. And this is the thing, is that the urban heat island is a major effect. So their whole thing is, oh, if temperatures go up 2 degrees Celsius over 100 years, we're all going to die, right? Okay, check this out. Urban heat island effect. Under 30 degrees in the suburban residential, right? The shift goes up to 33 and a half. So basically a full 3.5 degrees Celsius difference between urban areas and rural areas. Okay, so if you have even a significant component of your measurement stations in urban areas and recording all these, several degrees Celsius degrees. I mean, if you're taking out the number of recording stations and they're shittier and shittier because you're putting them in urban heat islands, you're gonna get these anomalies. And then so they do that systematically, and then they manipulate the data on top of that, and they call it global warming, and we're all supposed to freak out about that. Here's a map of London showing basically the different kind of a topographical map of the different temperature variabilities, right? And you show basically, look, 5 out here in the open country, 11 up here. So 6 degrees Celsius swing, okay? The more than the entire, global warming madness. Oh yeah, 2 degrees over 100 years, right? If you even put a significant amount of your recording stations in urban centers, you're gonna get way more than 2 degrees Celsius shift. And, so the bias creates, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy when you goal seek your data to the conclusion, right? They're pretending like this is science. It's a bunch of crap, and I'm not going to take it from anybody anymore. It's a bunch of bullshit. Here it is again, right? Oh, yeah, urban and rural. Look what happens in the urban data. Global warming. Yeah, and again, from the 70s when the number of stations was falling off a cliff. And out in the rural areas, oh, wait, oh, no global warming, just a cyclical trend, right? And again, the thing is that the global warming myth will be put to bed. It will be put in the ground very soon, because the data accumulation actually is increasing massively despite the manipulation and deception of NOAA and NASA. So here's what they're going off right now for the ship and ocean data. Here's the new system that's going to be implemented. But of course, or I think it has been implemented, but yeah, NOAA basically adjusts the data from them because they think that they should be warmer. It's just, they call this science. They call this science. It's total bullshit. Right? And here's Adapt 2030, great channel, going over all the stuff with the sun weather, and the possible mini ice age we're going into, talking about cosmic rays basically driving cloud formation, which of course the whole thing with global warming is predicated not even on carbon dioxide but on water vapor. And the thing is, ocean evaporation doesn't govern primarily the rate of cloud formation in the lower and upper atmosphere, right? It's galactic cosmic rays. Basically, it's energy from space, and that is not a fringe position at all. It's just outside of the bullshit mainstream global warming quack science, right? So here's these guys, all these guys. So CMIP6, right? Coupled Model Intercomparison Project. This is basically part of the computer models of how they generate the climate predictions, right? Where it links the ocean and the atmosphere circuits and flows, right? So these guys basically just came up with a whole data set to be input into the newest version of that system. And basically, they are throwing in all the data, not just the bullshit TSI that they had in the old ones, but basically they're throwing in the solar data for geomagnetism, particle forcing, solar spectral irradiance, all that stuff that I was talking about in my global warming, why Trump is right on global warming, all those things that are not included in total solar irradiance, all those things that they say, oh, the sun doesn't affect climate. As you can see, our straight line shows that, the sun isn't causing that much variability, but that's bullshit because the sun has tons of variability on its electromagnetic spectrums, right? So spectral forcing, particle forcing, basically these things are huge. And when this is put into the model, it's gonna take out the bullshit bias that they have showing that CO2 is driving it, because it's not, right? The sun is, and it's obvious. And the more you look at the real data, that becomes just ever more obvious. So that's global warming. It's bullshit, but again, these people want to claim that they're defending science and, that they can do no wrong because science, science, science. It's a lie. They're quacks. Moving on, vaccines, right? Dr. William Thompson, basically the chief data analyst, for the CDC report that claimed that there is no link between autism and the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine. Okay, this guy was the head of the study, head of the data analysis. Okay, and he came out and basically said this study was a lie, it's a fraud. The study showed that the MMR vaccine does have a major increase in autism, especially for certain classes of kids, like African American male kids. It's 7 times more likely to get autism after the MMR vaccine. And this is another one. These people want to say, "Oh, science, science, science." Bullshit. There's so much science showing that basically the vaccines are not safe and effective. And again, there's not just one vaccine, there's hundreds of vaccines. And to claim that all vaccines are safe and effective categorically is not a scientific position. It's a bullshit political propaganda position. And I'm not backing down on any of this anymore because I've had it. All right. So, yeah, vaccines cause autism 100%. Yes, they do. It's not just the mercury, it's about completely overloading the immune system of a very young child before their immune system is even fully formed. And not just giving them the requisite amount of antibodies from the pathogen, but hitting them with huge doses. Antibody counts in the thousands when all they need is like less than 100. Okay, and they not even that, they throw multiple vaccines into one shot, like the MMR. So your child, right out the gate, right at the beginning of its incarnation in this life, is getting hit with huge doses of all these toxic things mixed with all these toxic chemicals to stabilize and whatever. And we want to pretend like this is like this refined, ethical, wonderful modality of healing. It's total crap. Okay, so here's GreenMed info. Hundreds of scientific studies from PubMed showing harm from vaccines. I encourage anyone who's tempted to go, "Oh no, science, science, science." All right, look through the science, yo. Why don't you do some reading yourself and stop claiming that all the science supports you, because it doesn't. All right? They must find it hard to take truth for authority who have so long mistaken authority for truth. Quote from Gerald Massey, who himself was quoting somebody else, but great quote, because again, our parents, my parents, and the grandparents, mainly parents, but basically they've been instructed, they've been indoctrinated to take authority as truth. But our generation, the generation that grew up with the internet, knows that that is a crock of shit. and that basically truth is the authority, all right? And whether it's about big things like autism and vaccines or global warming or even coconut oil, right? You got these jackasses. The USA Today, coconut oil isn't healthy. It never has been. They're quoting the American Heart Association. I don't even know where the story went. These companies spend billions of dollars and they can't even make a freaking website. It's pathetic. So again, here's a Green Med Info, right, and their whole rebuttal, basically just showing that the American Heart Association is a political organization who's completely bought and paid for by, the Rockefeller Foundation, the big pharma, and it's total crap. Coconut oil is wonderful for you. I had some cannabis coconut oil this morning, and it's just wonderful stuff. And so yeah, basically, if you want to know why coconut oil is great, you can go to that. John Rose is a great YouTuber. We just found this guy is hip and attuned to all of what's going on. A 62-year-old guy who's freaking cut like a freaking statue and super vibrant and just making videos. And I just love this guy. I encourage anybody to check him out who's into some high vibration YouTubers. So moving on to black holes, I mean, the standard model of cosmology is another thing of science. Just, oh yeah, we're science. But you delve a little deeper into the actual specifics of what they're claiming, and it's total crap, right? Black holes don't exist. You look at the math that claims they do, it's total nonsense, right? Stephen Crothers does a good thing about this, and this is actually one of my points about these science people, is that they're not actually scientists, and they're not actually capable of looking impartially at data. Like, so I've presented Stephen Crothers to Einsteinian droids, right? And they Google his name, find out that he has like some views on religion, right? Maybe he's a religious person. But basically, this whole thing is going into mathematics, showing categorically why black holes and the mathematics involved does not make any sense at all and cannot exist. Right. And so rather than address all of the actual mathematical points made and all of the principles of physics referenced, they just look up that he has some association with people who are religious and they categorically deny what he's talking about and they don't even bother to look at it. Same thing with global warming. I've cited PhDs, Nobel winning physicists, and they just discard it. People who have far less training and education and credentials than the people I'm citing, and they just shut them down and just don't even listen to the data because, oh, they're religious. So again, if you look at the person's conclusion, fundamentally deny it, and then can't look at the data because you won't even do that, you're not a scientist. Don't claim it. Fuck off. Okay? Because I can't handle it anymore. All right, George Lemite, right, a Catholic priest, right, who came up with the Big Bang Theory, and this is supposed to be like the fundamental, the most scientific thing in the universe. It's just a theory. It's Catholic. It's from the Vatican. It's this nonsensical, made-up cosmology that's fed to us by the Triple Crown, headed by Rome, to keep us in a world of illusion. Because if we were to figure out how the universe actually works, we'd realize that we have huge amounts of power. And they, of course, don't want that more than anyone. The Vatican and what they've called the New World Order, they don't want that, right? Walt Thornhill, again, another brilliant, brilliant man who the Einsteinian robo-droids will say doesn't know anything. But you listen to this guy and he knows exactly what he's talking about. He's even got an explanation for the causation, the function of gravity, not just the function of falling objects, right? That's all that science will give you in school, but an actual causation of gravity, because in the electric universe, right, like charge is coursing spirally into heavenly bodies. It is electric charge distribution and differentials that causes the bending of a subatomic particle into a dipole, where it is kind of like it has a magnetic attraction to the thing that it's being attracted to. So gravity is actually a form of electromagnetism, and Walt Thornhill explains that. Again, you ask somebody in a college level class about what causes gravitation, and they'll give you some phony baloney. Space-time, blah, blah, blah. It means nothing. This is how it happens right here. Walt Thornhill, OG. Mystery spot in Santa Cruz, thing that scientific people will say doesn't even exist or it's an optical illusion. I've been here, okay? This place is not an optical illusion. This is the real deal, all right? This video isn't going to convince you. I don't expect it to. But if you go to this place, it's some weird stuff. There's a straight gravitational anomaly here. And again, people of scientific mind, they look into it. They don't have a way to explain it, using their conventional bullshit models. And so they deny that it even exists and they call it all an optical illusion. It's not an optical illusion. There's totally weird stuff going on there. But because they don't have the model to explain it, they just say it doesn't exist, right? The cosmic web, right? Just to lead back to what is the real truth, not just denying false truths, but alluding to what the greater truth is. The cosmic web, right? So the cosmic web was first kind of photographed back in 2014, and now they've got basically they made these computer models. Again, I don't like to rely on computer models too much, but this is really interesting. They had a supercomputer model what would happen with all these galaxies over millions of years, and just kind of like it formed this whole web pattern, right, to this cosmic web. And they say that this web is dark matter, right, which I'm saying and many or others are saying is a completely nonsensical placeholder in the theory to make up for the fact that its predictions are totally wrong. But what this is showing, it alludes to something that is real. It's just not dark matter, it's ether and it's plasma and it's Birkeland currents flowing throughout the universe between all the galaxies and all the stars, right? Here's another, image from that same simulation, and basically these, astronomers in India, basically looking into the cosmic web. And basically, the truth is the internet, the universe is all connected, right? You can look at mushrooms, mycelium in the soil, and you can see the same pattern. You can take an image of neurons firing in the brain, and you see the same pattern. All of the universe is interconnected. All of it is in constant, instantaneous communication through quantum entanglement. All right, that's been observed too. Faster than speed of light communication exists throughout the entire universe because all of the particles everywhere in every galaxy are entangled. And there's just this whole energy flow. And the thing is, if people would actually tap into that scientific modality of thinking and perspective, they would realize that they themselves are a transistor, a circuit within the thing, not only just a cog in the machine, but a self-aware, self-willed, freely contributing agent within this great free matrix, this hologram that is designed to generate experience and lessons. And you are an electric being that has immense power to not only perceive reality but to change reality. And that's not a woo-woo, new age, mystical perspective. That is entirely a scientific perspective. The frontier of quantum physics as well as conventional physics all bears that out. And I'm here to represent it and provide air support for those people who want to tune into that new resonance and don't want to be attacked by the robo droids who can't perceive anything outside of material reality and their little computer simulation. So that's really it today. I hope you guys take this as it is. Basically, I'm just trying to again provide air support. There's really good people out there who want to be looking into the truth, but they're not able to at times because there's people attacking them and calling them stupid and unscientific. And I'm here to basically say that those people are stupid and unscientific. And when they start waking up to the fact that they are not the final arbiters of scientific truth, and we can all have this discussion together as equal human beings, honest and sincere and compassionate, and treating each other with respect, then I'll stop attacking them, because then we'll be on an equal playing field again. But until then, I'm going to keep bitch slapping the cheerleaders of science because it brings me great joy. So on that note, I hope you guys have a great day, wholeness and balanced vibrations, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.